She was the picture of perfection, Instagram's golden girl. He was a wealthy, influential CEO with a past full of secrets. Together, they appeared to have it all. But when betrayal entered the picture, it would shatter everything, leading to a brutal and shocking end. How could a seemingly perfect marriage between a young Instagram model and an older CEO spiral into such horror? What happens when love, greed, and deception collide, and one woman's desires lead to her deadly downfall? Before we dive into this chilling true crime case, hit that like button and subscribe to True Crime Files, HQ for more disturbing stories of betrayal, love, and crime. Bella Rose, born on August 14, 1997, was a rising star in the world of social media by 2022. At just 25 years old, she had amassed millions of followers on Instagram, where her flawless beauty and enviable lifestyle captivated the attention of people around the world. Known for her curated posts, Bella flaunted luxury vacations, designer clothing, and the high life that seemed to be her personal reality. But beneath the surface of the picture-perfect life, Bella was also known for her bold and controversial opinions on wealth, success, and love. Her posts often sparked heated debates, with followers either admiring her ambition or criticizing her perceived materialism. By late 2022, Bella's social media presence took on a new dimension when she began showcasing her life with a much older man, Victor King, a 70-year-old self-made billionaire. Victor, with his graying hair, sharp suit, and commanding presence, became the subject of intense speculation. Was their relationship built on love, or was Bella simply using Victor to climb the social ladder? Some admired her for securing such a high-profile partner, while others accused her of seeking financial gain at his expense. Regardless, Bella's followers were transfixed by their whirlwind romance. Victor King, born in 1952, was a man who had built his empire from the ground up. By 2022, at the age of 70, he was a highly successful and respected self-made billionaire, having created a multi-million-dollar conglomerate in the tech industry. Known for his charm, charisma, and sharp business acumen, Victor had become a fixture in elite circles, often attending exclusive events and rubbing elbows with other high-powered individuals. His wealth allowed him to live a life of luxury, and he enjoyed the status that came with it. When he met Bella in early 2022, their connection was immediate. Despite their age gap, nearly 50 years, Victor was drawn to Bella's beauty, energy, and the way she effortlessly navigated the world of social media. For Bella, Victor's wealth and power were irresistible, and she quickly became smitten with the idea of living a life of excess and prestige. In a matter of months, their romance grew public, with Bella frequently sharing their moments together online, from private jets to five-star dinners. By the end of 2022, the couple had made their relationship official with an extravagant wedding that captured the attention of the media and the public. Their marriage, which took place in early 2023, was widely celebrated as a modern-day fairy tale. The image of a beautiful young woman marrying a wealthy, older man seemed to fit into the narrative of love conquering all. Social media buzzed with admiration for the couple, with many praising Bella for marrying a man who could provide her with a life of unimaginable luxury. However, not everyone was enamored with their love story. Many critics pointed to the significant age gap between the couple and questioned Bella's true motives. Was she truly in love with Victor, or was she simply after his wealth and influence? Some followers suggested that Bella was a gold digger, using her beauty and charm to secure a future that most could only dream of. On the other hand, some admired her ambition, seeing her as a woman who understood the power of social media and was willing to leverage it to her advantage. Victor's family, especially his children, were less convinced. They worried that Bella was more interested in their father's fortune than in a genuine relationship. They voiced their concerns privately, but Victor, smitten by his young bride, brushed them off. He believed that Bella was the love of his life, someone who would stand by him as he grew older. His family, however, couldn't shake the feeling that they were losing him to a woman who might not have his best interests at heart. Bella's own family was equally skeptical. Her parents, who had always instilled in her a sense of independence and self-worth, were concerned by the age gap and the nature of the relationship. They questioned whether Victor's love was genuine or whether Bella was simply caught up in the allure of his wealth. Bella, however, was deaf to their warnings. She insisted that their love was real and refused to listen to their doubts. She saw nothing wrong with marrying a wealthy, older man who could give her the life she always dreamed of. Her family's concerns were dismissed as outdated and narrow-minded. Despite the public scrutiny and family concerns, Bella and Victor's marriage seemed to thrive. As they traveled the world, attending glamorous events and posting their life online, they solidified their status as the ultimate power couple. But in the midst of the dazzling exterior, cracks were starting to form, cracks that would soon lead to a shocking and tragic downfall. Bella quickly grew accustomed to the luxurious life she had always dreamed of. However, as the initial euphoria of her marriage faded, she found herself increasingly trapped in the gilded cage that Victor had created for her. The reality of being married to a man nearly 50 years her senior was more stifling than she had anticipated. While she basked in the opulence of their mansion, the designer clothes, and the jet-setting lifestyle, she soon realized that her every move was being watched. Victor's controlling nature began to reveal itself in the smallest details, his constant surveillance of her phone, his insistence on knowing where she was at all times, and his demands to accompany her everywhere she went. What had initially seemed like gestures of affection, surprising her with gifts or lavish trips, soon began to feel like imprisonment. Bella had become little more than a trophy wife, an accessory to Victor's wealth and status. She had no voice of her own, and her every move was dictated by his whims. Her once vibrant social media feed, which had once been filled with adventures and personal triumphs, now seemed like a carefully curated performance, one that showcased a life that felt more like a prison than paradise. The smiles in her posts were forced, the laughter rehearsed. Behind the scenes, she was suffocating, struggling to maintain her image as the perfect wife while feeling increasingly isolated and alone. Victor's overbearing presence at home became suffocating. Every room felt like his domain, and Bella felt like a mere spectator in her own life. Victor's love was possessive, demanding, and unyielding. He expected her to be at his side at all times, a constant reminder of his success and control. Even when they were apart, his influence loomed large. Every text message and social media post she made had to be approved, and every conversation was weighed with suspicion. Bella longed for space, something, anything, that wasn't dictated by Victor's obsessive control. It was in this stifling atmosphere that Bella met Jacob Marshall, Victor's 28-year-old personal assistant. Jacob was everything that Victor was not. He was young, energetic, and exuded a carefree spirit that Bella hadn't felt in years. While Victor hovered over her every move, Jacob made her feel alive again. He offered her an escape from the walls that were closing in around her. Their first encounter was casual. Jacob had been asked to assist Bella with some of the logistics of an upcoming charity event. The chemistry between them was instant, a spark of excitement in the midst of Bella's emotional isolation. Jacob was charming, attentive, and, most importantly, he made her feel seen and desired in a way that Victor never did anymore. They exchanged flirtatious remarks, the energy between them crackling with the promise of something more. What started as innocent banter soon evolved into stolen moments of passion. Bella found herself seeking out Jacob in the quiet corners of the mansion, their encounters fueled by a mixture of longing and desperation. She was captivated by his youth, his free-spirited nature, and the way he made her feel like she was more than just an accessory in Victor's world. Jacob, in turn, found himself drawn to Bella's beauty and the vulnerability that she hid beneath her glamorous exterior. He was well aware of her marriage, but as their connection deepened, the lines between right and wrong blurred. Their affair began as a fleeting escape, a brief respite from the suffocating reality of Bella's life with Victor. But as the days passed, their encounters became more frequent, their connection more intense. The once shy glances and secret meetings turned into passionate trysts in the quiet hours of the night. Jacob showed Bella the affection and attention she had been craving, and in return, she offered him a taste of the extravagant life she lived. Bella was torn. The lavish comforts Victor provided, his wealth, his power, his ability to give her everything she had ever wanted, kept her tethered to him. But the passion and excitement she found with Jacob were intoxicating. She had never felt so alive, so desired, so free. Every kiss with Jacob was a reminder of the life she wished she could lead. But the weight of living a double life began to take its toll. Bella's social media posts continued to showcase her marriage as perfect, her life as flawless as ever. She posted photos from lavish dinners, trips to exotic locations, and events attended by the world's elite. But behind the scenes, Bella was becoming more and more distant. The tension between the life she portrayed online and the life she was living behind closed doors was growing unbearable. She would lie to Victor about her whereabouts, making excuses to avoid his questions, her anxiety mounting with each passing day. Victor began to notice the subtle changes in Bella. He could sense her distance, her eyes no longer sparkled the way they once did, her smiles were more forced, and her laughter seemed empty. At first, he attributed it to the pressures of their high-profile lifestyle. She was still adjusting, he thought. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He questioned her more often, probing for answers that Bella was unwilling to give. She reassured him with empty words, masking the truth behind a facade of perfection. The cracks in their marriage were widening, but Victor, blinded by his love and possessiveness, refused to see them for what they truly were. Bella, on the other hand, was running out of excuses. The allure of Jacob's attention, the thrill of their secret affair, was beginning to consume her. The pressure of maintaining her perfect life, coupled with the guilt of betraying Victor, was pushing her to the brink. Yet, she couldn't stop herself. The passion and excitement Jacob brought into her life were too intoxicating to ignore. The truth was clear, she was no longer just a trophy wife. She was a woman trapped between two worlds, unable to reconcile the life she had with Victor and the one she longed for with Jacob. And in that tension, danger was brewing. Victor's suspicions had been gnawing at him for weeks, each passing day deepening his unease. He had started to notice the small changes in Bella's behavior, her late nights, the fleeting glances at her phone, her distant expressions when they were together. Despite the facade she put up for the world, something didn't feel right. Victor's mind, ever the strategist, began to spiral into a place of paranoia. He couldn't shake the thought that Bella was slipping away from him. His love for her, once blind, had now turned into something far darker, obsession. Unable to sit idly by any longer, Victor made the decision to take matters into his own hands. He hired private investigators to shadow Bella. Every move she made was monitored, her meetings, her outings, her phone calls. He needed proof, concrete evidence that would validate his growing fear that Bella was no longer the woman he had married. Days passed, and the investigators returned with damning information. It didn't take long for them to uncover the truth. Bella was seeing Jacob Marshall, his own personal assistant. The betrayal was as raw and real as the evidence in front of him. Victor's heart clenched in a mix of anger, betrayal, and humiliation. He had built his empire on trust, and now his world was crumbling at the hands of the woman he had once adored. The night Victor confronted Bella, the tension was palpable in the air. The mansion, once filled with the sounds of laughter and love, was eerily silent as Victor stormed into the living room, his face contorted with fury. Bella was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, seemingly unaware of the storm that was about to erupt. When she saw the look in Victor's eyes, she knew something was wrong, but she had no idea how deep the breach had become. Bella, Victor's voice was low, controlled, but there was a clear edge of fury beneath it. I know about you and Jacob. Her blood ran cold. Her eyes widened in shock, but she quickly tried to mask it with a strained smile, her hand clutching the side of the couch as though it could anchor her to the present moment. I don't know what you're talking about, she lied, her voice a little shaky. Victor took a step closer, his eyes locking onto hers, his gaze searing through her with the intensity of someone who had been deeply wounded. Don't lie to me. I know everything. I've had you followed. I have the proof. Bella's heart began to race as the weight of his words hit her like a punch to the gut. She stood up, backing away, her pulse quickening as panic began to claw at her throat. Victor, please, she stammered, her mind racing for a way out. It's not what you think. Victor's expression twisted with disbelief, his nostrils flaring as he took another step forward. Not what I think. His voice rose, the fury in his chest bubbling to the surface. You think I'm stupid? You think I wouldn't find out? Bella's eyes darted nervously, her mind scrambling for the right words, but the truth was there, exposed and undeniable. She had betrayed him, she couldn't deny that. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice thick with guilt. I never meant for it to happen. It just did. I was lonely, Victor. You don't understand how you make me feel sometimes. Victor's face twisted into a mask of rage. He had built a life for them both, a life that was meant to be perfect. And she had ruined it all. In his mind, this wasn't just a betrayal, it was an attack on everything he had worked for, everything he had sacrificed. His chest heaved with anger as he spoke, each word dripping with venom. Lonely, he spat. You wanted a life of luxury, and now you want sympathy. You think I don't know what this is? You've used me for my money, for my status. And now you've thrown it all away for some young boy. The words hit Bella like daggers, but she couldn't argue. She had been foolish, and now she had to face the consequences. She sank to the couch, burying her face in her hands, trying to hold back the tears. Victor, please don't do this. I'll make it right. I'll stop seeing him. I'll do anything. Just don't. Don't. Victor's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. You think I'm going to let you ruin me? Your little affair, do you know what it's going to do to my reputation? To the life we built together? I made you, Bella. You're nothing without me. The air in the room felt thick, suffocating. Bella's mind raced, but she knew the words had already been said, and the damage was done. She had been caught, and there was no way out. Her voice broke as she tried once more to plead for his forgiveness, but Victor wasn't listening. His mind was already set on what he needed to do to fix the damage, to regain control. His fury, once contained, now burned hotter than ever. Victor moved to the window, his back turned to her, his face shadowed in the dim light of the room. I'm going to expose you, Bella, he said, his tone low and calculated. I'll ruin everything you've worked for. You won't be able to show your face again. I'll destroy your career, your brand, everything. You think your social media followers will still love you when they know the truth? Bella's heart stopped. Her image, her brand, everything she had worked so hard to build, gone in an instant. Her fears came rushing to the surface, and she quickly scrambled to her feet, stepping towards him, her voice pleading. No, please. Don't. I'll do anything. Please don't expose me. I'll fix it. Just don't ruin everything. But Victor's mind was made up. His anger had become a driving force, one that consumed everything else. He couldn't bear to be made a fool of. Bella's betrayal wasn't just an attack on their marriage, it was an attack on his pride, his legacy. His eyes turned cold, his voice steady and final. It's too late. The damage is done. And you're going to pay for it. As Bella's world began to crumble around her, she realized too late that there was no way back. Her future, her career, her image, Victor had the power to destroy it all. And as the door to their mansion slammed behind him, Bella knew that the consequences of her actions were just beginning to unfold. Victor's mind raced with thoughts of revenge and control, each one spiraling further into a dark obsession. The weight of Bella's betrayal, her affair with Jacob, had become too much to bear. He couldn't stomach the idea of her moving on, of her finding solace with another man. His pride, his ego, everything he had built over decades, felt as though it was crumbling at his feet. Bella's actions were an affront to everything he had worked for, and in his mind, there was only one way to make things right. Victor's wealth and influence provided him with the tools to carry out his revenge with precision. He contacted a hitman, a man known for carrying out clean, efficient work. No questions asked, no traces left behind. Victor made sure the plan was flawless. The hitman would enter the mansion under the guise of a robbery, a random, senseless crime that would seem almost too coincidental. No one would suspect him, and the authorities would never link him to the crime. For weeks, Victor played the role of a loving husband, pretending to reconcile with Bella while secretly making arrangements for her untimely death. He fed her the false hope that their relationship could be saved, that they could find their way back to each other. But in reality, he had already made his decision. The man who had once been the love of her life would soon become her executioner. The night of the murder arrived, and Bella, emotionally drained and broken from her last confrontation with Jacob, drove to Victor's mansion. She had no idea what awaited her. In her heart, she still believed there was a chance for forgiveness, a chance for redemption. She pulled up to the sprawling estate, the lights of the mansion casting long shadows in the night. Her pulse quickened as she stepped out of the car, her heels clicking against the marble driveway. Inside, the mansion was quiet, the kind of quiet that made Bella uneasy. Victor had asked to meet her in the study, his sanctuary, a place where he often retreated to plan his next business moves. Tonight, it would be a place where the final act of their twisted. Victor was already inside when Bella arrived, sitting at his large mahogany desk. His posture was stiff, his face impassive, but his eyes were cold, filled with the simmering rage he had kept hidden for so long. As Bella stepped into the room, she noticed something was different. The air felt heavy, charged with an unspoken tension. "Victor," Bella said softly, trying to steady her breath. "I'm sorry. I know I've hurt you, but I want to make things right. Please, let's talk. We can work through this. We don't have to end it this way." Victor remained silent for a moment, his gaze never leaving her. He looked at her, not with love or longing, but with contempt. "Work through this," he repeated, his voice low and filled with disgust. "You've already made your choice, Bella. You chose him. And now, you've destroyed everything I've worked for. You think you can just erase all of this? All the years I've invested in you, all the trust one gave you?" Bella's heart raced as she took a step toward him, her voice breaking. "I was wrong, Victor. I know that now. I never meant for any of this to happen. I was lonely. I was stupid. Please, don't destroy everything. I still love you." Victor's eyes flickered with a brief moment of hesitation, but it was gone in an instant. He stood up, his chair scraping against the floor, the sound sharp and unnerving. "Love? You think you can stand there and say that to me after everything you've done?" His fists clenched, and for a moment, Bella thought he might strike her. Instead, Victor took a step back, his gaze shifting towards the door. The hitman was already inside, hidden in the shadows, waiting for his cue. He had been there the whole time, silently observing the scene unfold. Victor's cold eyes met the hitman's, and with a subtle nod, he gave the order. The hitman stepped forward with a chilling calmness, the weight of the gun in his hand a stark contrast to the chaos that was about to unfold. Bella, oblivious to the danger, turned her back for a brief moment, her eyes searching for some form of comfort, some sign that Victor might relent. But when she turned back, the hitman was already too close. A single shot rang out, the deafening sound reverberating through the room. Bella's eyes widened in disbelief as she felt the sharp, burning pain in her chest. She gasped for air, her hands instinctively clutching at her clothes, but the blood flowed too quickly, too forcefully. She collapsed to the floor, her body shaking as she fought for breath, her vision beginning to blur. Victor watched, his face an emotionless mask as Bella's life bled away before him. Her screams echoed in the mansion, but it didn't matter. The only sound that remained was the rhythmic thud of her heart slowing to a stop. The room was still, and Victor stood there for a moment, soaking in the finality of what he had done. Bella was dead. And with her death, Victor had reclaimed control. The hitman swiftly moved to cover his tracks, erasing any evidence of the crime. The mansion's grand study would soon be filled with the sounds of sirens, the flashing lights of police cars, and the chaos of the aftermath. But for now, it was quiet, and in the silence, Victor allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. He had won. But as the hitman disappeared into the shadows and Bella's lifeless body lay in a pool of her own blood, one truth remained: there would be no returning to the life he had once known. What had begun as a luxurious fairy tale had now descended into a tragic, irreversible nightmare. The morning after Bella's death, the mansion was filled with an eerie stillness. The lavish home, which had once hosted glamorous parties and moments of public adoration, now felt like a cold tomb. Bella's body lay in a pool of blood, her lifeless form a grotesque symbol of Victor's wrath. Her flawless beauty, once a beacon of aspiration to millions, was now marred by the brutality of her end. When the authorities arrived, they were greeted with a scene that seemed too chaotic to make sense of immediately. Bella's body was discovered in the grand study, surrounded by the trappings of wealth, a luxurious Persian rug now stained with her blood, a crystal decanter that had once held Victor's favorite whiskey, now shattered on the floor. There were no signs of forced entry, no signs of struggle beyond Bella's final moments. It appeared to be a robbery gone wrong. Victor, standing in the doorway, feigned shock. His hands trembled as he clutched his phone, his voice choked with false grief. "I don't know what happened," he stammered, his eyes wide with the act of horror he was performing. "I came in this morning, and she was just lying there. Please, you have to help me." But behind his performance, a darkness lingered. Detectives exchanged glances, noting the calmness in his demeanor despite the violent death of his wife. His words seemed rehearsed, his reactions too controlled, as though he had already prepared himself for this moment. Outside the mansion, the media frenzy erupted. News vans lined the street, reporters clamored for information, and photographers captured every movement, every detail, of the unfolding tragedy. Bella's death quickly became headline news. Her millions of followers on social media, who had once admired her picture-perfect life, were now left in shock and disbelief. Posts flooded Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, memorializing the beauty and allure of the young influencer. Her followers, many of them young women who had idolized her lifestyle, now mourned the loss of their beloved social media star. Her death was no longer just a personal tragedy, it was a public spectacle, and the world watched as the pieces began to fall into place. Victor's image, once that of a loving husband and successful businessman, began to unravel. The carefully curated facade of the perfect couple, the golden marriage, started to crack. His story, one of a heartbroken husband whose wife had been tragically taken from him, didn't sit well with those who knew the truth. News outlets began to dig deeper into Victor's background, searching for any clues that might explain Bella's sudden and brutal demise. The more they uncovered, the more the public began to question his innocence. It wasn't long before investigators found the first sign of a deeper, more sinister truth. Detectives combed through Victor and Bella's communication, uncovering a series of unsettling text messages exchanged between Victor and the hitman in the days leading up to the murder. The messages were damning, a meticulous plan to eliminate Bella under the guise of a robbery. Victor's controlling nature was clear, his obsession with maintaining control over his wife's life, and now her death, was undeniable. As the investigation unfolded, interviews with Victor's business associates painted a disturbing portrait of a man obsessed with power and control. Those close to him described a businessman who would go to any lengths to preserve his empire, even if it meant manipulating those around him. Family members, once supportive of his relationship with Bella, began to question his motives, suggesting that Victor's obsession with keeping up appearances had pushed him to the edge. Bella's affair with Jacob Marshall, once a closely guarded secret, was no longer just a scandal, it was a crucial part of the case. The details of the affair began to emerge, with detectives uncovering evidence that Bella's relationship with her 28-year-old assistant was not only well known to Victor but had been a source of constant tension in their marriage. Victor's jealousy and rage over Bella's infidelity had fueled his desire for revenge, and the hitman's presence at the mansion was the final piece of the puzzle. As the public reaction swelled, the image of Victor as the loving, betrayed husband was increasingly questioned. His public grief seemed hollow, his every word scrutinized by the media. The once revered CEO, known for his wealth and success, was now under investigation for the murder of his wife. The public's fascination with Bella's life and death only intensified the spotlight on Victor, casting him as the prime suspect in what was now a high-profile case of betrayal, obsession, and murder. The truth, buried beneath layers of deception and manipulation, was slowly coming to light. The carefully constructed image of the powerful businessman and his glamorous wife had crumbled, leaving only the dark reality of what had truly transpired in the mansion. And for Victor, the consequences of his deadly decision were only just beginning to unfold. As the trial continued, it became clear that the case was about much more than just the murder of Bella Rose. The media frenzy surrounding Victor King's wealth and his involvement in his wife's death sparked a nationwide debate on a variety of societal issues, making the case even more controversial. Parents, religious leaders, and social commentators seized the opportunity to speak out, using Bella's tragic end as a cautionary tale for their children. Churches across the country held sermons warning against the dangers of materialism and the destructive nature of greed. Religious leaders argued that Bella's life, with her obsession for luxury and fame, was an example of the emptiness that comes with chasing wealth and superficial success. They preached about the dangers of placing too much importance on external appearances, warning their congregations that the pursuit of riches and fame could lead to moral decay and destruction. They pointed to Bella's lifestyle, the Instagram posts showcasing her lavish life with Victor, as proof that materialism could create a false sense of happiness, leaving those who chased it empty and vulnerable. Parents, too, took to social media and family gatherings to express their concerns about the choices their children were making. They pointed to Bella's marriage to Victor King as a warning about the consequences of not listening to parental advice. Many expressed frustration at how children today were so eager to chase after fame and wealth, ignoring the wisdom of their elders in the process. "This is what happens when you disregard the values of family and hard work," they would say, shaking their heads. Parents feared that their children might one day fall into the same trap of chasing fleeting dreams of wealth and success, only to face a dark, irreversible outcome. The scandal surrounding Bella's death became a lightning rod for discussions about the moral decline in society, particularly among young people. Critics decried the rise of Instagram influencers and social media stars, suggesting that these platforms only encouraged vanity, materialism, and a shallow sense of fulfillment. They argued that Bella's life, built on a foundation of likes, followers, and expensive handbags, was an embodiment of what was wrong with the world today. They questioned whether fame and fortune were worth the price of one's dignity and integrity, using her tragic end as proof that the pursuit of wealth at any cost could lead to self-destruction. Simultaneously, the case raised uncomfortable questions about the power dynamics in relationships. Critics of Victor's controlling nature saw his actions as a manifestation of toxic masculinity, where wealth and power gave him the ability to dominate and manipulate his wife. The prosecution's argument that Victor orchestrated the murder not out of love, but out of a need to control Bella and maintain his image, fueled this line of thought. For some, the case illustrated the dangers of excessive power, showing how men with wealth and influence could use their status to hold others captive. Emotionally, financially, and even physically. The controversy didn't stop at wealth and power. As the media storm intensified, social commentators also questioned society's obsession with celebrity culture. Many argued that the public's fascination with Bella and Victor was part of a larger issue, where people were more invested in the lives of the rich and famous than in their own communities or families. This case was used as an example of how unhealthy obsessions with others' wealth, success, and social media presence could cloud one's judgment, leading them to make reckless decisions, whether in relationships, finances, or personal values. Victor King's trial was no longer just about a murder, it had become a reflection of society's deepest issues. The case exposed the dangers of ignoring the advice of parents and loved ones, the destructive force of materialism, and the toxic effects of excessive power and wealth. It became a polarizing issue, with some seeing it as a warning about the consequences of living in a world obsessed with external validation, while others saw it as a tragedy of a man consumed by his love and jealousy. As the trial unfolded, one thing was certain: Bella's death had sparked a national conversation that would continue to divide opinions for years to come. This tragic story serves as a chilling reminder of how love, greed, and betrayal can spiral into violence. Bella Rose's life, filled with fame and luxury, was brought to a brutal end by the very man who once promised her the world. Victor King's obsession with control and revenge led him down a dark path, one that would destroy everything he had built. The twisted dynamics of their relationship, her search for excitement and freedom, his suffocating possessiveness, became a dangerous combination, ultimately resulting in a loss that shocked millions. Could Bella have escaped this fate if she had been honest about her feelings? If she had dared to speak her truth and confront the growing dissatisfaction in her marriage, would she still be alive today? Or was the tragic end inevitable, a product of a dangerous obsession with wealth, power, and status? And how far are people willing to go to protect their wealth and reputation? Can love truly survive the weight of jealousy, control, and betrayal? If this story shocked you, make sure to like and subscribe to True Crime Files, HQ for more disturbing true crime stories that explore the darkest aspects of human nature.